Well, thank you for joining us this morning. I have as my guest, as I announced earlier this morning, the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhini. Good morning to you, Alhassan.
Good morning, Roland. Good to have you back.
How was your weekend?
Alhamdulillah, it was fine.
Yeah, the beginning of last week I was a bit under the weather. I guess it's just got to do with the weather and all that. So I also have somebody I haven't talked to in a while, Eric Chum, who is a Deputy CEO for the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And it's been a while, sir.
I know. How are you?
I'm good. I'm managing. And well, let's get to the main issues. We'll be talking about things about Gitmo 2. Yeah, forgot to mention that, and about passport and change of names, etc. But let's start with pictures that started trickling in of Dr. Alhaji Bawumia, and the Vice President of our Republic. It started on News File, Samson Ladia, and he premiered those pictures, and he gave some good news to the entire Ghanaian public. And we know that the conversation around him was that he had taken a medical leave in the UK, etc. But that's good news, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, to start with, I'll say good morning to the viewers, and then also, of course, to yourself, and then my friend here, Honorable Suhini. I think that we all would be very grateful to God for keeping our Vice President, and in the last few days, the very fact that he's hale and hearty, and he's well, for me, it's something that we should all celebrate. The most unfortunate aspect of this thing is that whilst most well-meaning Ghanaians were very much interested in how well the Vice President was doing, we had certain elements who were actually wishing for the worst. I mean, the sort of commentary that was coming out actually after these pictures came out was actually, for me, extremely distasteful. And I think that even though we do politics to a certain point, you don't have to get to that point where you're actually wishing each other, I mean, ill. I think that is not something that we should encourage.
You mean who was doing that?
And it is not something that is even a typical Ghanaian thing, that even in as much as you have disagreements and you can't see eye to eye, when it comes to issues as health and death and all of those things, it's something that is alien to our culture. And I think that we shouldn't allow politics to, if you like, create this thing that, I mean, it's almost like a do and die affair. Because in the final analysis, we are politicians, but we are meant to have divergent opinions in terms of how the trajectory of this country will go in terms of development. But if the final, I mean, the most important thing is for us to develop this country, then it shouldn't be to that extent. And I think that I'm trying to actually restrain myself. But some of the things that were going on in terms of commentary was actually extremely distasteful. And it's something that we need to be able to move away from, especially when it comes to a new generation of politicians and stuff, so that we get to a point where it's about Mother Ghana rather than individual, I mean, political inclinations and all of those things. But then again, it fits into a certain, if you like, political climate, whereby people have created this thing about the Vice President just because he's meant to be somebody who has been a thorn in their flesh in terms of his economic pronouncement and all of those things prior to the 2016 elections. And I think that some people, unfortunately, actually wished for the worst. But I'm happy that he's doing extremely well. And you see, when you move away from the politics as well, he's a father, he's a husband, he's an uncle to somebody, he's a son to somebody. So I think that anytime we have this conversation, let's situate it in that context rather than the pure, if you like, hardcore politics. You understand? If you're able to do that, I think that some of the things that even happen in this country in terms of issues of corruption, people would
Well, Mr. Chum, you're not by any way saying that the other side of the political divide, and let's be specific, the NDC minority in parliament, for example, the party needs to have politicized this, would you say?
No, they have. And
they have?
We have to be, I mean, brutally honest.
That would be surprising, wouldn't you say? Because I haven't...
they come out with a statement that they were wishing the vice president well and all of those things. Then in the same vein, they claim that, oh, the pictures of him and the videos of him out there is actually old pictures and old videos, and that they have evidence of what has really transpired and all of those things. I was with my brother here on another platform, and he seemed to have claimed that, I mean, he knows more than is happening. And I mean, when even commentary had come out from the Minister of Information that he's spoken to him and it's fine and all of those things, and that they want us to disclose what is really wrong with him. And then the justification is that prior to the 2008 elections, there was issues surrounding the health of former President Mills, the late President Mills, and it was from the MPP. And even that is not true. Because the truth of the matter is that the issue of former President Mills's health was not something that was started by the MPP. This was a situation where even certain leading elements in the NDC at the time actually went into caucus, trying to change him as a flag bearer by virtue of the fact that they felt that he wasn't healthy enough to actually contest. Then, if you go all the way back to even towards the 2012 elections, they themselves came up, and I can mention names where individuals like Neil Antebandapo and Co will come and say, oh, the president is not going to campaign. They will just bring him to come and stand there and raise his hand because, I mean, all of those things happen. You understand? They had their own newspapers, the Informer, and all of those things. So even using that as a justification makes no sense. And even if that is the case, I think that it's almost distasteful that you use the health and then things like death and all of those things as part of our general politics. And it's something that we need to move away from.
So, Henny.
Well, Roland, personally, this is a very difficult subject for me to examine. But because we are on the platform to discuss the issues, and once it is tabled, it will be impolite to choose not to comment on it. So I'll make some few comments, and that has been my attitude since this issue came up. I think the only time I discussed it again was last week when I was on the same show with my brother Eric Chum on another network. But he has made some very factual, inaccurate claims that I first of all have to correct. One being that the NDC has issued a statement to wish Dr. Bawumia well and claim that the videos and some of the pictures are old. That's not true. And any casual...
I said commentary.
You said a statement.
Yeah. But you wished him well from the manner, or you haven't? Or you didn't?
We haven't issued a statement. So that's not true.
Oh, okay.
We have not also said that the videos and the pictures are old. All the minority leaders said in Parliament, which I agree with, is that the communication around the way he left Ghana and why he left Ghana was untidy, was not appropriate. So we have said nothing as a party, as a minority, about his health and about pictures or videos. All we have said, which is on record, is that the way they managed the communication about how he left Ghana and why he left Ghana was inappropriate and untidy. Again, he says on the show that I was with him, I claimed that I knew more than was being let out. That's again false. I never did. I never claimed that I knew more. I simply also criticized the communication handling of the whole matter. And on that show, I mean, viewers who may have watched it can testify. I'm sure the recording will still be online because it was streaming live on Facebook. I never discussed the issue of his health because I made it clear, like I have done here today, that it is not an issue personally I want to go into. Because you see, for me, our partisanship, our politics must rise above these natural human failings. And that is an attitude I've had from the time that I could understand anything political. Natural human failings are not and should not be part of our, politicking. For example, somebody in a statement says, because we all are fallible, I want to kill two birds with one stone, or one stone with two birds, and that's politics. I want to say economy and say economy, and that's politics. Or somebody says quadruple and says quadruple, and that's politics. Or somebody says that nobody paid money or something, and that's politics. I think those natural human failings should be seen as what they are. But in this country, people have politicized these things. And you know the examples. So when my brother sits here and pontificates about how, we should not talk about people's health, that somebody is a father, a husband, please, I agree with him. But I think it is insulting and very hypocritical to people whose families have suffered these things in the past. And I'm talking here specifically about Professor Mills, God bless his soul. I'm not saying because of that, same should be done to Dr. Bawumia and his family. No, that's why I've said that for me, those natural human failings should have never been introduced into our politics and should not even continue. And then he claims that it was within the NDC and the NDC started it. Roland, you have been in this profession for a very long time. And on the show that I was with him last week, I gave an example which I'll repeat here. If a family meets to discuss the future of their family, and in the course of the discussion, the health of another member of the family comes up for discussion, there's nothing wrong with it. If a family meets to discuss the future of their family, and in the course of the discussion, another member's health and its implications to the future of the family is discussed, there's nothing wrong with that. And this family you're talking about I'm talking about the NDC. What is wrong with that is when a neighbor, in this case my brother's party,
eavesdrops,
championed by the Daily Guide and others,
but how would they eavesdrops
to
information
and gets that information and begins to play the kind of mischief that they played with it, even till the point of his death, and they have not even stopped. They still sometimes, when it suits them, says what killed him. They do it. Very, very despicable. Very, very unfortunate. Condemnable. They still do it. So it is very unfair, especially to the people who, at that point, cautioned severally, spoke against that kind of politics, said we should desist from those politics. For you to sit here today and turn around to blame them, okay, and make it seem as if some people are all of a sudden have become so insensitive and have become
so you're saying what, the NDC has not politicized this?
The NDC hasn't. The NDC hasn't, and we don't think it should even be politicized. What we have said and we maintain, Roland, is that the handling, the communication hasn't been appropriate, or it hasn't been appropriately done. For example, we're all having a very good afternoon when all of a sudden a statement was issued by the communications director of the president, Eugene Ahin.
What's wrong with that?
To inform Ghanaians that our vice president was sick.
No, he said the vice president has taken a medical leave.
No. The first one was that he was not well. The second one is what that was signed by Freeman that said that she was taking a medical leave and had been flown abroad.
We take the medical leave one.
No, the first one, it created panic. It created panic. What was the need? I mean, Roland, and I say this with a lot of caution. Our president, God bless him, is 70 years plus. And it is only those who are blessed by God who attain that age. But we also know that that age comes with its own health, implications.
Yeah, okay.
Are we saying, and I do know this for a fact, that it will be very, very, difficult for anybody to convince me that in the whole of the year that he has been president, he has not seen his doctor. At 70, even if you are not 70, Roland, in 1 year, you may have had one ailment or the other, for which reason you will have to see your doctor. Why didn't they, or why haven't they ever informed us that our president has gone to see his doctor? So why should Dr. Bawumia go to see his doctor for any mere health reason, and then the Ghanaian people have to be informed? Why?
So you're saying that communication was needless?
That was needless.
Okay.
Because it simply created the situation that maybe his situation is terrible, and so Ghanaians have to be prepared for the worst. But if it was just a common flu or fatigue, like we are told, and he went to see his doctor, why did we have to why did we have to put the nation on that alert? Then it moves further to him being evacuated and flown out. And yet, even at that point, we're still told that it's just fatigue. It's just tiredness. And the vice president has worked for 1 year, and he is entitled to live like any other Ghanaian.
So you're saying it's a communication?
So the communication could have simply told us that he's gone on his leave.
No,
if he was just tired
and it's not being politicized
rest.
by the NDC
it's
or
not.
anything.
We're simply saying the handling of the communication hasn't been effective. And Roland, maybe a final one on the video that is making the rounds.
Oh, the Saturday video.
The Saturday
There's
video.
even a new picture I have shared, him sitting with Dr. Eben Chambers.
You see,
shared by a good friend of mine who works with the president, Mustapha Hamid.
Yeah, you see, Roland, I think some of these things are not also tidy. First of all, we were issued with an official statement from the presidency about his health and about his evacuation out of the country. This video, who authorized it? Is it also from official sources? And that is why I think that is why I think that the media that hurriedly and excitedly shared it should have been more restrained. This is okay on social media, but a media house should authenticate, check and double check before you also begin to propagate it. So there was an official statement from government. Was this video also from an official source from government? Which should be the reason why Ghanaians should be calm. I am happy if indeed this is a true video as a Ghanaian, that our vice president is said to be well. But I am saying that it should have been accompanied by an official statement if our media, if the expectation was that our media should take it serious. But without an official statement, I'm wondering why our media is still no verification. I'm not saying it is wrong. I'm not saying it is a fake video. But up till today, we don't know who took it. We don't know who released it. We don't know what the purpose is. Yet, as media people, Because I have been in the media, I'm asking myself, if I put this out and it turns out not to be correct, who am I going to blame? Myself or my friend who sent it to me?
Well, I'm actually quite confused in terms of, where this is going. It's like a shifting of goalposts. So in the first instance, it was more to do with the fact that the communication was wrong, and that it should have been that he could have just slipped out of the country or even be sick,
I never
if you
said
like,
that, Roland. I never said he could slip out of the country.
Without recourse to... Let me make my point. Because we've had...
You are so quick to misrepresent.
I was extremely...
So you didn't say that?
I was quiet.
I didn't say that.
What I'm saying is that...
Don't misrepresent.
We've had... You see, sometimes when you do this, then the politics come in.
Okay.
Right? We've had this...
Let's go.
Yes.
No politics.
We've had these instances where we have had the reason to even find out where our president was in time past. And it happened under your watch.
You mean President Kufuor when we couldn't find him and later realized he was taking milk, camel milk? Is that the one you are talking about?
All of those things have happened in the past.
No, he says we should do politics.
I was quiet.
Yeah.
All of these things have happened in the past.
Yeah, President Kufuor was lost.
I am happy that the vice president is well, looks hale and hearty. Now, you cannot really fault the communications directly of the presidency. When it happened that at the point where he fell sick and he had been taken to see his doctors, it is always possible that other people would have been present, would have seen that the vice president has been taken ill. And you don't allow people to basically speculate or even come out with all sorts of things that are not necessarily the case. So,
do you know the source of this video?
As an open and transparent government, they decided to issue a statement to say that, well, you might hear that the vice president has been taken ill, but he's doing well, he's going to see his doctors, he's actually resting at home. The subsequent communication was that he's been taken out of the country to seek further medical attention and then to also take some time off work. What is wrong with that? I mean, for anybody to actually have an issue with this, I would not really be able to appreciate what the motivation is. It's important that we also stick to the facts. I mean, one, the minority leader actually issues a statement and makes the same claims that my good friend here is making in terms of the fact that, well, they wish the vice president well, but they have issue with the communication. In the same vein, he says that the party has not issued any statement. I don't know who the minority leader actually represents, you understand? But it is important to also state that the NDC did not necessarily mean well for the vice president. It's obvious. Per the commentary and all of this, you see, when he goes round and round and round and comes back and starts even blaming the media, right, for not authenticating the video and because there was an official statement and all of those things. This is a video if the man is walking on the streets of London and the video has been taken of him, or there's been pictures of him communicating with other people. There's also information that he's spoken to so many other people. He's spoken to the Minister of Information and all of those, and it comes out. Does he have to come from an official government source to say that, yes, this is a video that we've been of the vice president with his wife and it's being released to the public? Come on. I mean, sometimes we have to move away from those things.
You spoke for only 3 minutes, so I'll give you only 3 minutes.
I hear you. First of all, the official government spokesperson is on record to have already cautioned us.
Who?
Mustapha Hamid.
Who is the information minister?
Who is the information minister. When Gabi Ochredako issued on his Facebook wall that he had met with the vice president who had rented an apartment in London and was living there, and it was put to Mustapha Hamid on Metro TV, he said it was untrue and that he knew that the vice president was still in a health facility. And when challenged, he said he was the one who speaks for government. And it is the reason why I'm saying let's be careful with this video as media. Because even with Gabi Ochredako's narration, the information minister said he was the government communication person. So you go with this video at your own risk. Because if you went with Gabi's assertion, you could have been told by Mustapha Hamid, the information minister, that you were wrong. That's why I'm saying there's a need.
The vice president will come into this country.
That is why I'm saying.
And then these people will say that it's not him, it's like actually a ghost.
I mean,
come on, what are you going
he's setting his own questions.
No, but that is the point. That
he is setting his own questions.
I don't even know why you are belaboring this whole point about the media and the media.
You have 1.5 more minutes.
You're not happy. Are you not happy that he's coming?
Mr. Chum,
I'm just asking him. Are you not happy that he's well and he's coming back to do his work? You're not happy?
Thank you, sir.
From day one, as a party, through the minority, we have insisted that we wish him well.
Exactly.
We will not play the kind of politics they played with Prof.
All right,
Samuel.
so let's move on.
Please, you said 1 minute. Is it
yeah, 1 minute.
Please,
1 minute.
Roland, I don't think that's good. The thing is that we have never. So they said the question. You see, they say that in our language, they say the executioner does not want to lie flat. So because they did it, they make assumptions that we are doing it. And so even when we are not doing it, they see shadows. And then they make claims.
That's not the case. I'm saying that he would come into this country.
Please, the time is up.
Can
we move on to the next subject? Unfortunately, I have to cut off. But let's go to Gitmo. And we're going to play a video from News File with the man, Kwekubako Jr., who was also a guest on the show. Please just take a watch.
You granted them refugee status covertly. I can tell you on authority that the entire membership of the refugee board were not involved in that decision. The board.
That cannot be
one
true.
or two. Okay, let me proceed. I'm telling you.
That's serious. No.
I'm telling you, because it was processed in a very different way in collaboration with national security. Something worries me. When the ratification issue came up and the foreign minister brought the report to the request, the motion was moved. I think the speaker referred the request to the Committee on Foreign Affairs. And I have the Hansard here too on the day of 1st August. And they went through all the deliberations. Not a hint of the refugee status was dropped to the committee. Not a hint. The same way it was absent in all the handing over notes. The members of, and especially in this case, Okujoto Ablakwa, he's the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, was a former deputy minister. Obviously, he was also kept in the dark. I'm sure my brother Fuseni too was kept in the dark.
Kwekubako Jr. And let me start with you, Sohini. Right. This whole controversy about the Gitmo 2 and now subsequently transitioning into the narrative about the status that was granted them as refugees and what actions government needs to take or can't take, etc. And this revelation also by Kwekubako Jr. that apparently even they had the change of name for them to acquire passports, and then the counter argument was that it was for them to have some regular to live regular lives in Ghana, and then subsequently those were withdrawn. But he said they still had those documents in their possession. What would you say to that?
Well, first of all, there's no controversy. And then secondly, I think if I heard him well, they talked about documents that allowed them to get certain services, not passports. They were never issued with Ghanaian passports. And even Kwekubako admits that they were not issued with Ghanaian passports. They were issued with some documentation that allowed them to access some services. The bone of contention had to do with whether or not those documents are still in their possession or are in the possession of the one who supervises them. But I say there is no controversy because, Roland, the only reason why we are where we are is because our friends in government are bent on continuing with their propaganda around the decision of the previous government and President Mahama to accept these people into the country. And we need to go back to the beginning before we can understand what is happening. In the beginning, our friends in the MPP were of the view that these people were terrorists. That was the first conclusion they made. And convinced a lot of Ghanaians, including civil society, to accept that they were terrorists. 2, they were of the view that these people were a threat to our security, and convinced a lot of Ghanaians to believe that bringing them to this country was going to put our security at risk. 3, some of them were of the view that President Mahama benefited financially and directly through this negotiation. Those were the 3 key positions they took. And those were the reasons why they thought that President Mahama shouldn't have taken them, and promised or assured the people that if they were in charge, they would have taken a different decision. President Mahama continuously, on behalf of the NDC, assured the nation that 1, these people were not terrorists, and that 2, they were not a threat, and 3, he never benefited from it, but simply accepted them based on compassion and on humanitarian grounds. Those were the arguments at the time, Roland, and I'm sure you remember, and I'm sure the good people of Ghana will remember. Today, what is the status? The Attorney General and Minister of Justice went to court, filed documents, and in those documents, she stated that indeed these people were not terrorists, agreeing with the position President Mahama advanced earlier, and 2, that they had been of good behavior, and because of that, they were not a threat to our security. The Foreign Affairs Minister came to Parliament, and in answer to a question that was put to her, she also said that the 2 gentlemen had been of good behavior, and for that reason, they were not a threat. And then also again said they were not terrorists from day 1, and that they were simply picked from Afghanistan, and in their 14-year stay at Guantanamo Bay, no evidence was adduced to the effect that they were terrorists. And so they came to the conclusion, or at least the government today has come to the conclusion that President Mahama came to. The 3 points are now clear to them, that indeed these people are not terrorists, were not terrorists from day 1, and then indeed they are not a threat. So if they have waited for the behavior of the people to show them that they are not a threat, President Mahama had vision and saw it earlier based on reports that were given to him. If they are now convinced that they were not terrorists, President Mahama read about these people earlier and knew that they were not terrorists from day 1, and so we're showing them compassion.
Mr. Suhini.
So yes, Ola.
Is the fulcrum of the discussion not being that certain information or perhaps revelations were not given to the Ghanaian public, more so to members of the Parliament of our Republic, to make some informed decisions and come to some conclusions? Perhaps if that information was also made available, the opposition then, which is now in government and forming the party forming government, would not have come to those conclusions.
We have gone past that.
No,
Roland.
we've not gone past
I'll
that.
tell you how
For
we
example,
have gone past that.
If we had documents that were put together for them to have, or to enable them have regular stay, that, for example, was not revealed to certain institutions and certain individuals within those institutions that needed to know. I think that's at the thrust of the discussion.
No.
It's not about what the president at the time or government at the time.
Roland, why are we having this discussion? The discussion is about whether we should take them out or not.
I do understand that.
So I'm saying that, why do we want to take them out? Because first, remember, the first reason why we wanted to take them out was because we thought they were terrorists. And it's because we thought they were a threat to our security. And it's because we thought someone benefited financially from that transaction.
That was a speculation.
Yes.
That was a politics.
Yes, but I'm saying that those reasons today we are told don't exist. So why do we still want to take them out? If not for propaganda. Why? That is the question I'm trying to answer. Because you see, they were of the view, and it was because of these 3 reasons that they even said that parliamentary ratification should have been sought. and that maybe the agreement would have gone to Parliament, and people would have known through that agreement if someone benefited financially, if indeed, and maybe based on the fears that were expressed, some members of Parliament would have even voted against ratifying it. So the 3 points that surrounded this discussion have all been, we NDC and MPP have all converged at one point now. The fact is, they are not terrorists.
So you're saying the only excuse why the government cannot take them out is that because they had been of good behavior, have attained refugee status, even though we're told that they were not told, etc., is because we cannot revoke that refugee status because they've been of good behavior. And again, they are not as violent as we thought they were.
We should ask the question, why do we still want to take them out when we have informed the Ghanaian people today that they are not terrorists and they are not a threat to our security? Why do we want to take them out? The only reason is because of propaganda.
You see, my brother here was talking about somebody digressing earlier on, and he has actually totally deviated from the point of the conversation. And I'm actually quite surprised that he is sitting here and laying claim that there's no evidence to suggest that these 2 individuals were suspected of have engaged or been associated with terrorists, and that was the reason why. But that's out there
about misrepresenting people. Did I say?
No, I'm just saying that you're saying that
they were suspected of being terrorists, but they were not confirmed to be terrorists.
Listen, you're saying that they are not terrorists, and there's a reason why they went there to start with.
Yes.
Let me finish.
They were suspected to be terrorists.
I was quiet. They were suspected to be terrorists.
Don't misrepresent me.
And that they had dealings with terrorist groups and all of those things. The evidence is there. You can actually Google it. The second point is that he is saying that they have been of good behavior, and that by virtue of the fact that they've been of good behavior, it means that they should be allowed to stay. That is debatable. It's out there. But the point really is, how do you know? How are you able to anticipate what you're going to do tomorrow? By virtue of the fact that they've even been incarcerated and been put in a certain environment. And then it's also not true that the NPP and the NDC, the NPP government, has now converged to the same point in terms of what the NDC did. Because to start with, Hannah Tete, who was foreign minister at the time, came out publicly to state that she was not even privy to some of the negotiations. The Minister of Interior at the time.
It's not because we
let me finish.
I thought that it was because of national security.
Yeah, but if issues of national security, and that the president can, by virtue of that, the president himself can go and sit somewhere and negotiate on behalf of the people. Yeah, but if he's Minister of Foreign Affairs,
making the conclusion the president
if the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Interior, 2 integral key people when it comes to negotiation of that sort, all come out, and I'm not making it up, he's sitting here, and say that they were not even privy to some of the negotiations and all of those things. And it turns out that their names have been changed, they've been given refugee status, all sorts of things have happened. Initially, even the communication was that they were asked to come in, the American government was not going to pay any money to us. All of this thing came out. And I'm not making it up. The communication coming from them stated categorically that we were not actually going to get any money for their
NPP government. Do you think they're committed to letting these people get out of our country?
And then, this issue has actually gone all the way to the Supreme Court. And it turned out that the due process was not followed. So sit round and now justify on hindsight that, because they are not terrorists, because they've been of good behavior, and because they've been given refugee status, it means that
that's not what the NDC said. The NDC has not said that.
But what is it? I don't know. But the point is that the NDC is saying that he is claiming propaganda, and I'm saying that the propaganda can only happen because ministers, cabinet ministers, Interior, Foreign Affairs, who are meant to have been integral in this decision, all claim not to have been privy to some of the decisions that were taken. Now, if that is the case, how would that not actually, stimulate some kind of propaganda? You understand? But the point to say that we have all converged, when we all know as well is that the issue have actually been traveled all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has made a determination that you didn't follow the due process.
But that is past now.
Yes, but we cannot just, I mean, throw it away and claim that they did the right thing. And then for him to even claim that, oh, by virtue of the fact that they have come in.
Mr. Richo, let me just make this final point. You will not end it. There's a fundamental point.
And what is it?
The position of the MPP then as a party, the leading opposition party, now being the party that has formed government after winning election, is what? Is that what was espoused by the no, please. Was that what was espoused by the foreign minister when he appeared before the plenary? Is that it?
Okay, let me come. It's a very simple matter.
It's a simple question.
The NDC government at the time were not forthcoming, were not open and transparent with what
Don't go
the
there.
issues
I'm saying you've said that. I'm saying that now, what's the position of government now?
The position of government is that
because they've attained refugee status.
A previous government had gone ahead to, if you like, surreptitiously and covertly, if I'm going to actually...
And so the current government can do nothing about it.
Now, of course, you have to look at the processes and see what you can do. But we are also a country that has signed up to all these international conventions and all of those. So it's extremely important that you take... again, we don't go the NDC government way by following the due process. That even if it happens that there's a way out of actually getting them out of this country, you still have to follow the due process. But I don't buy the idea.
Is government intending eventually to take them out or find another country for them to take refuge?
I can't sit here. You see when you
you
do that,
should know.
Wait, listen. You see,
you're
when you
on the corridors of power.
You get into the realms of speculation and all of those
when you are in government, you don't
but
know
you know
about
one thing.
something.
You know one thing. You know one thing. This whole point of they are not terrorists. They are not a threat to the country and all.
Well, they've not been a threat to the country.
By virtue of that, then you can make that assertion that, so why didn't they keep them in the United States to start with? Or why didn't they take them to another country?
Well, that's why the United States had the agreement with us in the first place.
Exactly. So if they are of no threat, why Ghana? If they are not terrorists, why Ghana?
So the position of government should be, if they are of no threat, why should they still be here?
Exactly.
Your government should be answering that question.
That is why I'm saying that. This former administration went through a process that did not follow the due process. And they have actually tied our hands to the fact that these guys have actually been given status that we need to be able to. Yes, exactly. And then we need to be able to. We need to be able to get to the point where, get to the bottom of it. And then, because every single week, once it turns out that new revelations actually come out around this thing. Right, and if the process
those revelations will keep delaying government decision and government's opposition on it.
I won't be able to tell because I don't.
My time is up, so I'll give you only 3 minutes. You are ending the show for us.
Wow. You see, I find it very intriguing when my brothers and sisters in government talk about their hands being tied. Roland.
Well, really, their hands are tied.
But you lied to the people of this country.
We have signed on to existing protocols. Because they're currently refugees, it's difficult for government.
Roland.
Yes, sir.
Those protocols and our local laws all support us to take these people out of the country.
If we want to.
If we want to, one, and if two, we still think like we used to think that they are terrorists and they are dangerous.
They are dangerous.
The laws are on our side.
Yeah.
And again, this is a government that has told the people of Ghana, and indeed are doing it, that they are reviewing all agreements that the previous government went into. And they are doing it.
What?
Even people
this
with
one has
employment,
expired.
Roland, even people with employment that guarantees them, security of job. Bank of Ghana, 3 governors, all gone. They are reviewing everything, every contract except Gitmo 2.
Well, this one has expired. This one has expired.
So now they want us to be...
When it comes to Gitmo 2, their hands are tied.
No.
When it comes to every other agreement, every other contract that the previous government went into, they are reviewing it. Whether the law is on their side or not, they find reason to.
Why not Gitmo 2?
So why not Gitmo 2? Why are they deceiving the people of Ghana?
Alasan Suhini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. He's been here with Eric Chum, who is the Deputy CEO for the Ghana Exports Promotion Authority. It's been good to have you, Eric. It's been a while. And good morning to you too. All right, so I hope you have a wonderful week, the two of you. But we have to take a break. We'll try as much as possible to also touch base with Ras Mubarak, And Ras Mubarak is a member of parliament for Kumbungu. And we know that he'd been on notes and also publicly saying that he would want, on advice of his counsel, go to the Supreme Court to get some interpretation on the president being, the Speaker of Parliament being sworn into office each time the president is not around because of the absence of the Vice President of our Republic, who, per the communication we've gotten from the presidency, is on some recovery leave, so to speak. So as a result of that, we'll try and see whether we can get some live feed from his office or wherever he is this morning and try to communicate with him and tell him, really, is he going ahead with his plans of going to the Supreme Court? And then what will be his point of contention when he goes to the Supreme Court?